Promote your brand here at Viral Hip Hop News. Email me, samant@vhiphopnews.com. No, wait, let's go.
TV show. How did you know, or did you know, that it was going to be a successful transition? Because the radio and television are two totally different things. How did you know that people would resonate, with Wendy on TV as opposed to just on radio?
I knew that having a relationship I had with at the time, because the management side of it, a lot of people don't know, like, management didn't start from the scratch. It wasn't about, like, I had my own businesses. I had my own trajectory. I was doing my parties. We consolidated with certain things, but I didn't really have an interest to go that deep. My interest came when I seen how the game was starting to play her from the radio side. Like, to her credit, I will say that she was one of the people can go back to 98.7 Kiss and when shit was streaking. And then the transition happened to Hot 97 and, the birth of it. Well, to her credit, she was one of the only people, along with Red Alert, when they dissolved Kiss, which is a whole urban empire of a station, and they kind of carried hip hop to a degree, along with WBLS, and WBLS being a black-owned station. I believe, was Kiss black-owned at the time? I believe Kiss might have been black-owned at the time. I'm not sure. But when Hot 97 was born, she was one of the only jocks that was inherited. Like all the other jocks, they brought, but they brought her. Now, when I say they brought, they kind of developed from with the idea that, okay, we're going to create a whole new urban situation and a platform and a radio station. And, I know Puff Daddy, his name at the time, had a lot to do with that influence-wise. And I know that with her voice and her reach, everybody was, definitely screaming her talents. And, it was a good business decision. So she was, they inherited her. But throughout the tenure of what she was doing, and being probably the elder statesman of the group, I guess they tried to treat her like a dinosaur as years went on. And there were like certain carbon copies of talent that it's crazy. There were people that they tried to put up under her to try to absorb like her talent and energy. One of them probably being Miss Jones, who befriended in a big way. But the plot was for her to get close to Wendy and absorb all of that and kind of become it so that they can kind of like fade her out. You know what I'm saying? And that's what they do to radio talent. If you don't have that next gateway or that bridge to to the next level, then they use you up and then they shuffle you out. And y'all seeing it with today's talent, all the announcements that was made in current radio, that's every radio, it's the Breakfast Club now. 10 years ago it was the Breakfast Team, and she was doing it in Philly with every crew got about 8 to 10 years if they lucky. And you better, in that 8 to 10 years, you better make something happen. So in her case, they definitely had a plan, to remove her. But, she was a fighter. And I would like to think back in them days, my production talents kind of started back then, except I didn't know it. Back then, I was helping produce her show and helping her formulate the questions, what was it? The four play at 4 was like the hottest hour in New York City. And that's where all the artists would come through there, and want to get interviewed and get their records promoted or whatever. But you knew when you came in that studio that those questions, that we had the only show where you didn't know what we was going to ask you. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna tell you something crazy. I didn't realize until I got the TV how many people tell you the questions, because I'm like, man, I ain't telling you no questions, man. You coming in or what? Like, you know what this is, yo, you coming? But we got you. Look, all right, you want us to try to stay with him? All right, we'll see. But I didn't realize the respect that you had to give somebody, and even when we first got the TV, I would tell some people I ain't telling you the questions until people had to tell me, nah, this is different. So when it came to the 4 play at 4, that used to happen all the time. I would help her formulate a lot of the questions. I mean, I'm talking about questions, that not so much would get under your skin, but like questions that would come from the street shit of knowing shit. Like if you know this, like how the fuck you know this, like that kind of shit. But with respect, because you want that reaction. So the production value of what we was creating then was kind of crazy, but they still had the plan. And obviously it comes down to money. You know, the ceilings at the time, you know, jocks now are getting paid more money for less talent, I believe. Back then, you know, you had much more talented jocks that had ceilings. And, you know, she would go into her negotiations like, you know, with the GM who happened to be a female at the time, painting her nails, and they'd be like, you know, well, we're not gonna pay you no more money, but you know, you can rock type shit. So you know, that don't make no sense. Like, you know, so for me, it was understanding that they kind of set her up. A lot of the things that happened, including the fight with Angie and whatever, was like setups to kind of play her out of position. Like now, when I think about it, it's like chess, and I wish I would have handled it differently. But you know, I was young at the time. I'm in my 20s. You know what I'm saying? I'm dealing with street shit. I'm doing parties. I got my detail business. I got a hair salon. I got all kinds of stuff going on, and I'm trying to keep up with my people. Who at the time was my lady, and then getting calls throughout the day like, "Yo, this just happened. This just happened." Like, what? So I'm dealing with things, and you know, when it came to a stalemate with God Bless the Dead, Steve Smith, and Tracy Clarity and Judy Ellis, who were the hierarchy of Hot 97 during this heyday. You know, they were going with the majority, and you know, at the time, you know, Diddy, something transpired. You know, she used to say a lot of stuff and reckless stuff, and you know, get at the groups and whatever, and something transpired where Diddy trying to promote, you know, and whatnot, and they got into a whole big thing, and they iced out the radio.
Hey.
So at the time, let me pick up. So whatever happened with the whole Diddy thing at the time, he had the influence of Steve Smith and everybody up there, and they was really trying to play her out. They was really trying to make her value and devalue her in the market. You know, she was one of the highest paid jocks up there at the time. And for them, it's like, if we can get rid of her, we can definitely open up some budget and whatnot. So they made their move to like kind of remove her from the air and suspend her like she was a little kid. And this dude, she was just going up there voicing commercials but getting paid top dollar. And when I realized that this was happening for more than like a month and a half, again, I'm not the manager, but I'm a smart person with common sense. I'm like, yo, they're trying to devalue you so you can't go nowhere else because they know your value is real crazy. They know that even though they didn't make you, so to speak, High 97 didn't create you, but you still are a threat that they don't want to have to compete up against or whatever. They know you got a strong following that's kind of like what you call it, like it's not just legendary, but it's almost like you know, it's generational. So they tried their best to just ice her out, remove her from the radio. And when I realized that, I got a lawyer to fight. At the time, I didn't even get every entertainment lawyer I tried to go to, they had influence with, so I had to kind of get a criminal lawyer, who at the time was Ray Hamlin from out of New Jersey, one of the biggest black law firms in New Jersey, and he helped me. You know, he didn't know much about entertainment, but he went and pulled up all kind of precedents from different court cases, from Warner Wolf's situation to whomever, and we was in federal court. And we wound up getting out of it. We was probably we set a precedence with Hot 97 where they had to change their non-competes from 2 years to 1 year. She didn't have to wait in a non-compete like other artists or other radios. You know, once we went to court, the judge threw all that out, and she was able to still go and work. And that's when she went to Philly, and we kind of went out there and did our thing, and the rest is kind of history. Like, you know, once she went to Philly, it kind of defined her as a person. Once she got out of the New York market, it showed everybody in the number one market that, yo, it ain't just a New York thing, it's a talent thing. And, you know, she took the stations out there to like number one status. When she first got out there, you know, they hated it. They hated the programming, but then they fell in love with it. And, you know, she left at top of her game. And that a lot of that had to do with the maneuvering, not just the talent, but me maneuvering behind the scenes and setting up all the marketing and setting up the the street presence and all the politics. You know, it's almost like you coming out there, nobody know you. You're a politician. You gotta shake hands, kiss babies, set up the right events, and you know, like I said, when we got out there, they wasn't so warm. But by the time we left, you know, when we left with 2 matching Benzes and Cristal popping, going back to New York, they was dying for us to stay. So, you know, that was a feat within itself. I would like to think that with all respect due to all the jocks that are the legendary jocks in New York, very few of them have left their thrones in New York where they sit nice to go and really challenge themselves in other markets where nobody know you and you got to get busy. Well, that's what we did. So, you know, with that being said, and I'm gonna get closer to, you know, realizing the talent and the dream at the time was, you know, always, I mean, I always envisioned it from a creative standpoint that it wasn't just like a regular urban jock who is spitting the latest. You know, her delivery and everything was different. You know, she had proper enunciation, and they almost called her, you know, like a valley girl on the radio. But you know, all the hood girls kind of like emulated that and idolized that. And, you know, when nobody was doing plastic surgery and like they doing now, she went out on a limb and, you know, held the flag for it. Now, again, I don't know if that was the best thing to do because, you know, it kind of affected our women and our culture a different way. But the fearlessness of what that was about and doing so, like, that was kind of like the tagline to everything that was happening from going to Philly, coming back to New York. And again, if TV wasn't in the sights then, but in Philly, the talent was really defined. I'll be honest with you, for the sake of a little bit of the personal, if we didn't come back to New York, it probably would have been a whole different outcome. Because Philly, you know, it's a blue collar city and it's not a lot of industry out there. So when you get to the top of the game, you know, you get there and, you know, you chill. And I don't know how long that would have lasted, but, you know, it would have been what it would have been. Once New York came back calling, you know, and they wanted because her name was still showing up in books and whatnot. At the time, they wasn't the PPM system. It was the books that people write and do the votes and let you know if you're number one or not. And even with her not being in the market, her name was still showing up. So, you know, BLS was in the gutter, in the garbage, in the trash with Jeff Fox doing midday or afternoons. And Charles Warfield at the time, who was the GM, had Vinnie Brown, who was her old boss from Kiss, who now was at BLS. He had him hightail it up the highway and he told him to lock it down because, you know, like, there's no reason for her to be out there in Philly still streaking and we suffering in New York. My whole thing was, if you go back to New York, you got to go back there like they don't know you and they stole something from you. You can't go back there thinking you hot shit and you was the shit. Like, you done been gone for a minute. Are you ready to go back and get busy? She's like, yeah. You know, that probably was the demise of the personal at that point because we really probably needed to chill. But I'm a go-getter and I'm a grinder. So I'm like, let's go. And, you know, when we came back to New York, them I want to say, them studious black people at Inner City Broadcasting who ran and owned BLS, black-owned station, knowing the value or whatever, you know, they only, I can be transparent, they only offered like $100,000 to come back. This is from somebody coming off a morning show, which, you know, they're getting, you know, a substantial amount of money. I ain't gonna say we was $1 million bracket, but morning show money is different from midday money. And it was like, yo, all we got is this. And I'm like, all right. I was able to manage that with a couple of perks and said, you know what, it's all good. And when we came back the first year, we probably made over $1 million through just